Our next storyteller is Brooklyn's favorite polymath and prize-winning photographer. He loves stories, whether he's listening to them, writing them, or listening to them. And he has a new book for sale called Smush, which is available on Amazon and other fine retailers. Give it up for Hayden M. Greene.
Yes, there we go. Yes. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. All right. I am nervous, so bear with me for a little bit. But there's a theme going on here of inathletic young men. And I will not disappoint. So I've been an outsider all my life. I've always been other, right? So a couple of things you need to know. I was born in London, England. And because, when my mom's from Trinidad, and when you want to leave Trinidad, you go to the motherland. And back then, that was England, and she learned to be a nurse. She met my father, had a torrid affair, and here I am, right? When I was 3, I moved to New York. Not so much I moved to New York. My mother moved to New York, and they have this whole rule that you have to take your kid with you. And so I show up in Brooklyn, and I'm the little British kid. I don't really fit in, right? I've got this weird accent, and a few words that I knew in American, I mispronounced them. So I finally got my footing, and I was around 9 years old, and this is the 70s. Yes, I know, I look fabulous for somebody this old. But this is the 70s, and my mother's like, no, I can't raise a young black boy in New York. This was back when New York was grimy, and there was a lot of crime. Wait a minute. The first time. All right, and so my grandmother was retiring and going back to Trinidad, so she took me with me. So here I am in Trinidad now, and I'm now the Yankee boy that shows up, right? So I'm the outsider again. And then I'd finally find my footing 10 years later, and I go to college, and I come back to New York, and I'm the Trini boy in New York, right? So I'm never really of the place that I am. But this story is about when I was in Trinidad, when I was a young man. Another thing you need to know about me, I too was inathletic, large, and did not fit in. And so I didn't play sports very well. So I didn't play cricket. For those of you who don't know what cricket is, it's like baseball. It only has 2 runners, and you look it up. All right, and I couldn't play, I didn't play soccer, or as we called it, football, because we're logical. So I didn't, I couldn't fit in with this stuff. And so I'm this fat kid from the States, right? And like they would whoop my ass on a regular basis, right? Like it was like, oh, it's Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Who's whooping Hayden's ass? I'm like, really, whose turn is it, right? And so I was desperate to fit in. And I had, though, one ace in my back pocket. So this is, again, back in the 70s, where there was no internet. It hadn't been invented yet, those of you on the live stream. And there is really not a lot of access to the outside world in Trinidad. So those people who, traveled back and forth were the ones that would be the envoy of the culture of the United States, more particularly New York, because for everybody outside of Trinidad, United States is either New York City or Toronto for some strange reason. So I had that in my back pocket. I still could talk a little bit about what was going on, because I would spend my summers in Brooklyn, right? And so I knew that I could bring something from the United States, but it was never enough, because I would try to kick a ball on the pitch, and I would, it would go somewhere that it wasn't supposed to go, and then I would get my ass beat after the game, right? So it was never enough. Except one summer, I knew I had a great idea. I was going to bring something of New York back to Trinidad, back to the town that I lived in. It was called Barataria, right? I was going to bring baseball to New York. I was going to be the guy that introduced baseball to Trinidadians. I was going to call it the Barataria Baseball Club. the BBC. In hindsight, I might have used a couple of different letters, but that's neither here nor there, right? I loved baseball. In Brooklyn, my mother's landlord, his brother was a groundskeeper at Yankee Stadium, right? Yes, the evil empire. I am a Yankee fan through and through. This guy would bring back all kinds of treats from Yankee Stadium, old calendars, bits and pieces of like different things, baseball cards, all of the stuff that should be collectible right now, but somehow or the other, my mother threw them away. I'm not bitter, all right? But I loved baseball. I loved everything about it. I loved to take me out to the ball game. I loved all of the popcorn, the Cracker Jack. Like, all of that stuff is still ingrained in me. I instill it in my children, much to their chagrin. But, like, listen, it was an amazing time. And I was going to be the one who was going to bring it to Trinidad, and this was going to be my ticket to not get my ass whooped every day. So I show up, and I say to them, it's like, hey, here's this thing called baseball, blah, 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 blah. The one thing that you did not hear me say was that I ever played baseball. I never played baseball. I mean, I grew up in the hood, right? Like, we played football from sewer to sewer, or, you know, there were basketball courts around, but a baseball field, yeah, we didn't have one of those, right? But that didn't stop me, right? So I show up in Trinidad and I've got one bat. Right? I've got one bat. I don't have a glove. I don't have any equipment. I don't know the rules. I know nothing except my love for the game. And I'm here trying to explain this to a bunch of people who are looking at me like, we have a game that's like this. It's called Rounders. Rounders is a game like baseball. You play it the exact same way, but you hit a tennis ball with your hand and you run around. They're like, we already got this game. So, like, after 2 or 3 times of me trying to get them to actually play this game, they all were like, you know what's a better sport? Whooping your ass. You know? We're gonna go back to that. And so that failed. That absolutely failed. But a couple of years after this debacle happened, I had a growth spurt. I grew into this chubby body, and yeah, I started to look a little bit like this, right? Notice I also have the I Love New York t-shirt on because I had to remind people I have access to something you don't, right? And so I grow older, I get legs out of nowhere, you know, and I discover track and field. And I become a runner. Not the fastest runner, but if you know anything about Caribbean runners, we run fast. Like the Africans run long, we run fast, right? Something about the heat. So I become a runner, and I become the captain of my school's house. Think Harry Potter. I become the captain of my school's house for sports day. It's a job nobody wanted, but hey, listen, you know, I lead them onto a successful sports day. I run the 4x4. I'm part of the tug of war, and I suddenly have friends. The same people that were making fun of me and beating me up all the time now couldn't, primarily because they couldn't catch me. That's, you know, have to mention that part. But I suddenly fit in. I was finally part of the crew. And these are some of my best friends now, even though they live in a different country than I do. But it was at that moment that I started to feel myself, started to come into my own. And then I discovered the wonderful world of girls. But that is a different story for a different day. But today is about the time that me, stupidly, tried to introduce baseball to the island of Trinidad and Tobago.